For the first time on television, we film in one of Beijing's black jails, illegal under Chinese law, but run by the state.
So the conditions here are obviously terrible. They've got either 20 or 30 people in a room.
These people haven't done anything wrong. Their crime was to complain about abuses they've suffered. The authorities dismiss them as troublemakers and want them swept off the streets.
These people say they've been beaten. Are you beating people? Are you torturing people?
In 2008, Beijing will host the Olympic Games, and China doesn't want any unhappy faces to spoil the show. This is the Beijing China's communist leadership doesn't want you to see. Outside Beijing's main government complaints office, ordinary people seeking justice. Their cases are a profile of everyday human rights abuses across China. By law, they can come here to petition if they feel their cases haven't been properly heard. But nobody was listening.
All of these people are explaining their petitions, and what they say is the inability that they have to get their petitions heard.
Security guards surrounded us and demanded to see our papers.
J2. Our translator has just been called a traitor for bringing us to this office here. The authorities feel decidedly uncomfortable if there's any form of discontent expressed on the streets of Beijing. And as a result, they feel deeply embarrassed. This is not the Beijing that they want to have displayed to the world.
The guards tried to stop us from filming, as all around us people loudly complained at their treatment.
These incredible scenes started as soon as we arrived here, and I think that the crowds there showed how frustrated they are by their inability to get any kind of accountable answer from the authorities here. This is the end point for them. They've exhausted the options of local courts, the municipal authorities, and now they've arrived here in Beijing, sometimes thousands of miles from where they live.
People trying to speak to us were manhandled away, but they kept coming.
What strikes me about all of this is that the petitioners are coming up to us with their documents because they have no confidence the authorities can settle their problems. And now they're just being shooed away by uniformed men outside uniform. I mean, the whole security apparatus here seems to be devoted to preventing people from having their petitions heard.
This guard told the woman to go to the petitions office. She replied there was no one to hear their cases. Under the communist dictatorship, there's no right to freedom of speech. But in an effort to appear open ahead of the Beijing Olympics, they claim that foreign media can work freely.
There's supposed to be no limit on access to talking to the ordinary citizens of Beijing, but she says that here we need permission to talk to the petitioners. Right. And my hands continue to be filled with documents. What was incredible about that was that just merely our presence precipitated this demonstration almost, and it just shows that the anger and frustration are just bubbling under the surface in China. People feel so helpless and frustrated that they're unable to express their discontent, and they're still following us down the street. Okay, sure. Yeah. My hands are now full of sad histories of injustices that they hope will be corrected here in Beijing. These people are so desperate that they have no ability to rely on their own government to settle their problems, that they're relying on the Western press.
We heard petitioners were being swept off the streets in the countdown to the Olympics and a Congress of China's Communist Party. sight of unhappy petitioners is apparently bad for business. But we found them everywhere, like these ones sleeping rough in an underpass. Out came the petitions again, with outpourings of grief and tragic tales that point to widespread corruption.
This was her house, her home, and then it was destroyed. That's a picture of her house being destroyed, and that's where she now lives. He was beaten by the developers' thugs. That's the developers' goons moving in with the bulldozers to destroy their houses. Right, this man's land was taken, and what's this case? Right, 3 generations of family made homeless. And what's your case? Land taken. Okay, this was his farm before, and that's what it is now. So there you have a mosaic of extraordinary and tragic stories. I was underdog, he's written. This elderly man, nearly 80 years old, was a medical college graduate before his life was ruined by wrongful accusations of being a counter-revolutionary, whatever that means, in the 1970s. He writes here in English, I was underdog, and then he also writes rather plaintively, assist. These people are not going to get much help.
Beijing hopes the Olympics will advertise China as a modern, open, harmonious society, the new superpower. China promised to improve its appalling human rights record. But in some ways the Games have made things worse. A stone's throw from the main Olympic village, we heard residents were fighting to save their homes from the bulldozers.
These residents are afraid of forced eviction from their homes here, right on the edge of the Olympic area. This is the eviction notice ordering residents of these 2 blocks out of the premises by today. And they say that if the residents don't go by today, there will be a second warning, after which they will be evicted by force. And here it's explained that the redevelopment is for road construction relating to the Olympics.
The compensation offered was pitifully low. This woman said she was determined to stay put.
The residents say that they know what the law is and they're going to resist eviction. They say that there are 162 households who are going to refuse to move out.
This man said the Olympics were all for show.
He accuses the developers of using the Olympics as an excuse to evict these people for redevelopment. And he says that the Olympics are being used to show off to the foreigners at the cost of the lives of ordinary people here. It's worth understanding that this is happening across the whole city of Beijing. Some sources say that up to 1.5 million people have been moved from their homes to make way for redevelopment ahead of the Olympic Games. And all of this is happening without any organisation to represent the interests of those evicted householders.
It was hard to find anybody brave enough to speak on behalf of those who had been forcibly evicted from their homes. We managed to contact an activist whom we were told would help us.
We were supplied with a code word to set up the meeting, and now we've been called to a house where we've been told he will have gathered some people to talk to us.
Liu Anjun was waiting for us in the street. I was shocked to discover he'd been disabled after a brutal assault while defending his home against demolition.
这儿呢，拿着刀，拿着铁棍，捅了我这地儿是4刀，把脑袋呢打了是将近有长的口子，打了是4处。
Mr. Liu was attacked by 4 thugs sent by the developers, and this is what he looked like afterwards. They broke both of his legs, one of his arms, they fractured his skull, and they stabbed him 4 times.
监狱里面的情况。
He continued campaigning and was given 2 years in jail for disturbing public order. There,